Imagine renewing your wedding vows. Most couples book a chapel, hire a local priest, maybe splurge on flowers and a photographer. But one billionaire looked at those options and thought, no, not good enough, not even close. He wanted the Pope, not a cardinal, not an archbishop, not some senior Vatican official with an impressive hat. The actual Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, the man who speaks to over 1 billion faithful around the world. And here's the thing, he got him. This is the story of how enough money, enough power, and enough political connections can turn the most untouchable institution on earth into a private venue. This is what wealth looks like when it stops trying to impress you and starts doing things you didn't even think were possible. The man behind a request. His name doesn't matter as much as what he built. A multi-billionaire industrialist. The kind of man who doesn't appear on talk shows, but whose fingerprints are on industries you interact with every day. Steel, infrastructure, energy. The type of fortune that doesn't come from a single clever idea, but from decades of calculated dominance across multiple sectors. He had homes on 3 continents, a private jet that his staff referred to simply as the plane because there was no need to specify which one. He had donated to hospitals, funded universities, and quietly bankrolled political campaigns on opposite sides of the aisle. Not out of ideology, but out of strategy. He understood one fundamental truth about extreme wealth. Money buys things, but relationships buy the things money can't. And he had spent 30 years building those relationships. Carefully, patiently, the way only someone who thinks in decades rather than quarters truly can. When his wedding anniversary approached, a milestone anniversary, the kind that demands something extraordinary, he sat down with his wife and asked her what she wanted. She was a devout Catholic. She had been his anchor, his confidant, the one person whose opinion he sought before every major decision. She had one wish. She wanted to renew their vows in the presence of something sacred, something real. He told her he would handle it. The Vatican connection. The Vatican is not just a religious institution. It is a sovereign state. It has diplomats. It has political relationships. It negotiates. It receives visitors, manages alliances, and participates in global affairs with the same quiet sophistication of any world government, except it answers to a higher authority than elections. Getting an audience with the Pope is not impossible. Heads of state do it. Celebrities have done it. But a private papal blessing for a personal anniversary ceremony? That enters entirely different territory. What made this billionaire's request unusual wasn't the audacity. People asked the Vatican for extraordinary things constantly. What made it possible was the architecture of access he had quietly constructed over 2 decades. He had funded restoration projects inside Vatican City. He had personal relationships with senior cardinals, not through chance encounters, but through sustained, respectful engagement. And he had political connections at the head of state level in predominantly Catholic nations. Allies who could quietly place a word in the right ear, confirm his character, and smooth the path through channels that no amount of direct requesting could open. The negotiation no one talks about. If you think this was a simple phone call, you've misunderstood how this world works. Months of careful, back-channel diplomacy preceded the ceremony. His representatives, not assistants, but senior advisors who spoke multiple languages and understood Vatican protocol with academic precision, began the process of making this request known. Not as a demand, never as a demand, but as a possibility the Vatican might consider, framed around mutual benefit and deep personal faith. Additional charitable commitments were made, substantial ones, the kind that fund genuine humanitarian programs across developing nations. The billionaire understood something crucial. The Vatican does not sell access, but it does recognize partners in doing good. And if doing good happened to align with a personal milestone celebration, that alignment was something both sides could live with. If you're finding this world as fascinating as we do, stay with us, because what actually happened at that ceremony is something most people will never believe. The ceremony, the location was not the Sistine Chapel. That would have been too conspicuous, too historically freighted with imagery that the Vatican carefully controls. Instead, a private chapel within Vatican City, breathtaking in its own right, with centuries of art on every wall and light filtering through windows that had witnessed history, was arranged for the occasion. The guest list was extraordinarily small, family only, perhaps 20 people in total, including their adult children, a handful of siblings, and 2 lifelong friends the couple had known before the money arrived, back when they were building something from nothing and weren't sure it would work. The billionaire flew them all to Rome on his aircraft. They were housed in one of the finest private residences in the city. Not a hotel, a residence, staffed and prepared with the kind of quiet perfection that signals serious money without ever announcing it. On the morning of the ceremony, Vatican protocol officers briefed the guests. The precise etiquette of a papal encounter, delivered with the gentle firmness of people who have done this many times and know exactly where the lines are. And then the Pope arrived. What money cannot manufacture? Here is the thing that surprises people when they hear this story. The ceremony was not ostentatious. There was no orchestra, no designer flowers flown in from 3 countries, no Instagram moment engineered for maximum visual impact. The billionaire had organized all of those things for other milestones in his life. This was different. This was quiet. The Pope spoke in Italian, and the words were translated softly for those who needed it. He blessed the couple's union. He spoke about endurance, about the choice that marriage requires every single day, about the strange grace that arrives in long commitments between people who have genuinely chosen each other through hardship and through ease. The billionaire's wife wept. He held her hand. Their children watched. In a life built on scale, on the biggest, the most expensive, the most powerful, this was 20 minutes of something that scale cannot produce. Intimacy, meaning, the sense that something sacred had touched something personal. That is what he was actually paying for. The look on his wife's face when she realized that for her, he had moved something immovable. The final word. We live in an era that talks endlessly about billionaire excess. The yachts, the jets, the private islands. And yes, all of that exists, and all of it is extraordinary in its scale. But every now and then, a story emerges from that world that is genuinely surprising. Not because of the money involved, but because of what the money was for. This wasn't spectacle. This was devotion, expressed in the only language this particular man knew fluently. The language of making impossible things happen. And if you've ever wondered what separates extreme wealth from mere wealth, it might be exactly this. Not the ability to buy luxury. Plenty of people buy luxury. It's the ability to move institutions, to reach into history, to arrange something the world considers immovable, and move it for love. If you want more stories from inside this hidden world of extreme wealth, stories that go beyond the headlines and into the rooms most people never see, subscribe now. We go places the cameras don't usually follow.